Hey friend, Catherine here, founder and creator of Meet Me at the Well. I'm so glad you found my little footprint here in the podcast world. It's an honor to take up some space in your heart and mind today, and I pray it brings great joy into your life, one episode at a time. I'm so excited to introduce Victoria Ellen, author of Painting in the Rain, a true story of trickery and triumph. Victoria has spent more than a decade relentlessly pursuing justice for her children, a battle that even led to the Ohio Supreme Court and beyond. She started out as a divorced single mother, struggling to get by after escaping a toxic marriage. She and her children spent years in therapy to overcome the trauma that they have endured. After traveling that bumpy road, Victoria became an award-winning businesswoman, a happily married wife, and a proud mother of two thriving college students. Now she and her family are candidly and courageously disclosing their transformative tale. Through it all, Victoria relied on her faith, her intelligence, and raw determination. And now she basks in victory on every level. She has found true love. She has found happiness and success. She has found her destiny, and she hopes that by sharing her story, she can help you do the same. I'm so humbled to meet so many at the well with this, and so grateful to have you on the podcast today, Victoria.
Thank you so much for having me, Catherine. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, it's such an honor. Just like I've been doing my research for this podcast and reading about you online, and um I am just so excited to hear your full testimony today, or parts of what you can share with us, to hear all of what God has done in your life. So let's just hit this off strong, huh? Can you share,
Absolutely.
yeah, your stranger than fiction testimony with all of us today?
For sure. I was just a young lady about 25 years ago or so, maybe a little bit longer. And I had never been in a truly serious relationship with anyone. And I grew up pretty sheltered, only child, only grandchild, and, just really protected. And that's obviously a wonderful thing, right? But I was a little naive to the world and to the devices that really evil people can use to trick people.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I met someone who I thought was this amazing, man of God and, someone that really loved me. And of course, I was, wanting to believe the best
Yeah.
and ended up getting in a really serious relationship, first serious relationship ever. And one of the things that I had always like prided myself on was like, oh, I'm waiting until marriage before I have sex with anyone. And I'm going to hold out and I'm going to do the right thing. And then when I was 20, I had been dating this guy for quite some time. And then I ended up pregnant outside of marriage. And so that just kind of like shattered everyone's world,
Yeah.
everyone's hopes and dreams for me and for my life. I was a sophomore in college. And so I ended up just trying to figure out like, hey, what am I supposed to do from this moment in time? And
Yeah.
where do I go from here? And so I felt like the best thing to do was to finish my associate's degree and to get married and just try to start this family and do the right thing,
Mm.
which, that's objective. I thought I was doing the right thing, which was actually turned out to be the worst thing I could possibly ever do.
Yeah.
I did the wrong thing, and I ended up getting married, and shortly thereafter had my son, who is now almost 25 years old. And, he is an incredible gift, but we had to go through a really, really rocky road because
Yeah.
right after I got married, I quickly figured out that I had made a mistake.
I hate that.
So
I'm
I
sorry.
know it was awful. Yeah. And when you kind of like abandon your entire life, your family and your life to marry this person, and you think that you're going to start a new life and it's going to be wonderful and it's going to be okay. And now you're going to be a wife and a mom. And I did
Mm.
probably every stressful thing you could possibly imagine within like a week of each other. I moved, I got married, I had a baby, and
Mm.
I like quit my job. So it's like all the things, right? All at the same time. So talk about trauma.
Yeah, no
I mean,
kidding.
there was a lot going on. But anyway, I quickly realized that I had married the wrong person and my husband was extremely controlling. And then just the abuse started. And just the sheer like you're not allowed to make decisions on your own. I'm going to tell you where you're going to go. I'm going to
Oh
tell
man.
you if you're allowed to work or you're allowed to leave the house. And I mean, just down to like, you can't even open the windows, you can't open the drapes, no one can see in our house. Just extreme control, not being able to drive my car when I wanted to. He would hide the keys from me. I mean, it's just unbelievable
Yeah.
control. But then when my son was 2, I started realizing that he was also being not only physically abused, but sexually abused. And so that really sent me over the edge because I was pregnant with my daughter.
Oh man.
And so I didn't know like what I was supposed to do. I didn't know where to go from there. We were living this like perfect life, and everybody thought we had our lives together, and we were going to church like 3 or 4 days a week. And, I was pretending that everything was fine, and it wasn't. And when I, realized that not only was my son being physically abused, but he's also being sexually abused, I didn't know who the perpetrators were because I was pretty immersed in my husband's family and their world. So I really wasn't sure who it was.
Mm.
So I stayed for a little while longer and then was just trying to figure out who was the perpetrator.
Yeah.
And after a really bad altercation, I ended up fleeing from the property. I ran out of the house and escaped. And he chased me down the street, and I ended up at someone's house who I'd never seen before, but that was in our suburban neighborhood in Ohio, and they just opened the door and let me in. They saw this guy running down the
Wow.
street after me. So, yeah. So, anyway, that was kind of the beginning of like the long, long, long journey of trying
Wow.
to put the pieces of my life back together again.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. And we're just getting started, Catherine. We're just like scraping the surface. It's wild to think about. But I started like 3.5 years of litigation at that time,
Mm.
and just the custody battle and the mudslinging. And I was trying to get to the bottom of who was abusing our son. And that was just basically pawned off as like, oh, there is no abuse. She's just a crazy, vindictive ex wife, and she just
Oh
doesn't want me to
my
see my kids. And the judge hated me. So she literally didn't listen to anything I had to
God.
say, and then ordered my daughter to do overnight visits because she had turned 3 years old. And my ex-husband was remarried at the time. So I thought like, oh, everything's going to be okay because he has a wife there that's going to help with the children and
Yeah.
it'll be fine. And I mean, I was worried and super concerned, but I was trying to just like squash all of those fears and all of the trepidation about the entire thing.
Yeah.
But both of my kids came home after that visit with visual signs of sexual abuse, and they were 3 and 6 years old. So your worst nightmare.
Yeah.
And so that just continued this spiral of abuse and trauma and guilt and shame. And I mean, it just beat the heck out of me and my kids, of
Sure.
course, and trying to convince them that, we're going to make it and everything's going to be okay. And that's never going to happen to you again. But knowing like, with this guy who literally seems to have just endless supplies of cash for all of these high profile attorneys, and he seemed to be connected with the court system. I just felt so hopeless and helpless. I was a single mom, 2 kids, food stamps, Medicaid, WIC, you name it. I was on all the government assistance programs. I had my name on the angel tree at church, at Christmas time. Like, somebody grab it, a name and like buy Christmas for this family because they can't afford to do Christmas.
Mm.
That was our life. Um, So, really just working hard to put those pieces back together. And so, just kind of have to do like a hard shift because we will be here until like, Christmas if I tell you the entire story. But I was in litigation at that time for about 3.5 years. But after the children started disclosing about their perpetrators, my
Mm,
ex husband went dark for about 10 years.
wow.
So we put the pieces of our life back together very slowly,
Mm,
deliberately, but through my faith, through therapy, lots of support from family and friends, we were able to kind of just get our lives back on track. And in 2015, so it was, well, actually, yeah, it was 2015. So it was almost 10 years later. I had been remarried, and my ex husband came back from the proverbial dead to
oh my goodness.
reestablish parenting time with his kids.
Yeah, go ahead
So
and
that's kind.
try.
Would you say?
I said, yeah, go ahead and try.
Exactly, exactly. But so a little plot twist here. So the same judge that hated my guts way back when is still on the stand.
Oh,
So I actually have a chapter in my book. It's called Wicked Witch of the Bench. And
that's
I don't think
perfect.
anything could more accurately describe her because, quite honestly, Catherine, I thought it couldn't get any worse. And then we went back to court and she's still there.
Oh,
And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is horrible.
yeah.
And long story short, she ended up sentencing me to jail because my kids wouldn't do visits with their perpetrator.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
this is why I have this book
Yes.
because
Seriously.
it just keeps getting stranger. I'm telling you, every
Holy moly.
every wild turn. Yeah. But my husband is just such an amazing man and he loves the kids and I so much.
Praise
And
God.
he is just such an incredible human. He is a follower of Christ. And he really just walks it out in his life. Like he's not one of those people that just like shouts it from the rooftops. He's not a minister, he's not a preacher, he doesn't do anything like that. He's not involved in those types of things in ministry or anything.
Yeah,
But his life is such an example for the kids and I.
love that.
And he just showed his love so tremendously. We ended up being involved in a court case, Catherine, that lasted 7 years from
Oh,
2015 to 2022.
wow.
So we had several court cases, but one was for the adoption of my children. So he was filing for adoption of the
Mhm.
kids to, just obviously be their dad. He was already their dad for 3 years before
Yeah.
my ex came back. So, and that's what the kids asked him to do. They wanted him to adopt
I
them.
love that
So
so much.
I know. It's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So we worked really hard in court cases to try to get the children adopted because then they wouldn't be forced to do the visits from, the Wicked Witch of the Bench. I wouldn't have to go to jail. The kids would be living happy, healthy lives. But
Yeah.
of course, that wasn't easy. Nothing was easy in this case. So we ended up finding out that my ex husband was actually a pastor of a church.
What?
He was also claiming to be Prince Daryl Atipo of Ghana, Africa. So he was claiming to be a prince. He also was a prophet to the nations. So, yeah. So he's traveling prophet. He was also the CEO of a company that had a gold mine in Africa. So he was like this big, business tycoon who was like traveling the world financing biofuel refineries in Ghana and Southeast Asia. And so we found all of these websites and none of it was true. Like
Oh
we knew it was.
my.
I know. So we're like, plot twist, like what's going
Yeah.
on? So we didn't even know where he was living. We didn't know. Like we didn't know anything. So we just started doing like it was a reconnaissance mission,
Oh
really.
my
I mean, it's the
goodness.
only way I can describe it. And
Yeah.
of course, the judge is ordering the kids to do visits. We have no idea where he lives. We don't know where he's going to take the kids. The kids don't want to go. I can't make them go. Now they're older. They're bigger than me. I mean, there's no way I could force them to do anything that they didn't
Yeah.
want to do anyway. I wouldn't,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's just like so many crazy just things. And he was driving all of these exotic cars, like a Dodge Viper and like just cars that like are not a normal everyday car. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we knew there was just exorbitant amounts of money coming from all these different places. We had no idea where it was coming from. And then he had these high profile attorneys. Meanwhile, we're bleeding our bank accounts, working second jobs, and we still can't keep up with all the attorney fees.
Wow.
So we're just like, where is it coming from? And
Yeah.
the wildest thing, Catherine, is that he didn't really want to see the kids. This was not about the children, it was
Yeah.
about me. And
Yeah.
that's the sad part. It's like this control and the manipulation and just the deception. It
Yeah.
had nothing to do with the kids because the kids, over a course of 7 years, you can imagine how many mediation sessions, how many supervised visits, how many different like court ordered sessions that we had to go to in order to just like adhere to the court guidelines without like having my kids taken away from me. I
Mm.
mean, it's just wild that that's even a concern, but the justice system sometimes is a little bit broken and it's
Yeah.
not really protecting the survivors of
Yep.
abuse.
Yep.
So, basically, what we did was we just tried to find out as much information as we could, and my husband convinced me to be my own attorney.
Yes, girl.
This where like like in the movie like the skies part and like the angels start singing the hallelujah chorus and like the big bright light starts shining down, like
Yes.
that's the moment for me, like
Yes.
that's the moment where I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna do this thing. So I put together an exhibit book. I filed a motion to basically change his child support order because I was the only person that actually had access to his financials. No one
Mm.
else did. And I knew that he wasn't working, but he was, a pastor of a church. And so I'm like, well, money's coming in, but he's not filing taxes. I know he's not. So, like,
Yeah.
that was the only way I could actually get the financials on the record, which was to go to court, request the documentation for like, hey, what do your finances look like, and
Yeah.
does your wife work, and now, oh, by the way, you're remarried and you have 6 children and a new wife,
Whoa.
like, how are you supporting a family of 8?
Yeah.
So, anyways, we go to court. I have my ex husband, the Prince of Ghana, Africa, on cross examination for an hour and 40 minutes, Catherine. Oh my
Yes.
gosh. He sang like a bird. If you know anything about a narcissist, they love to talk about
I
themselves.
do, yeah. I dated a narcissist. I almost married a narcissist. So everything you're saying, I'm like, wow, yes, yes, yes. Like
Oh
I was
my
gonna say
gosh.
your ex-husband sounds like a straight up narcissist. So yeah, that's
Yes. Well, and we like to ratchet it up a notch to the narcissistic personality disorder. This is where they have this grandiose opinion of themselves. They often think of themselves as royalty, aka prince, like all the things, right?
yeah.
Wild. So we're at another level. So anyway, he's on the stand, we're in the hearing. I'm asking him all these questions and he's like disclosing like everything I need him to say. And of course, the wicked witch of the bench, his best buddy, doesn't want him to say this stuff. So she
Mm.
gives him legal advice from the bench, which is illegal.
Oh
So
my gosh.
she tells him to plead the Fifth Amendment. Right. So this is like malfeasance of office or whatever, right? So he doesn't stop though. He's not going to break stride. He's really excited to talk about himself. So he's just doubling down. And the long and the short of it is I ordered the transcripts from that hearing. I delivered them to the feds and he ended up getting indicted on 16 federal charges.
Oh my God. Let's go, girl.
He should have left my kids alone. Like this is the
He
wild
should
thing.
have.
Like Mama bear, like, do whatever you want to me, say whatever you want to me, but like my kids, like you're
Yeah.
gonna mess with my kids. Like this is their life. Like
Yeah.
we have one life to live, and you are just determined to destroy their lives and dragging them through endless court battles and everything for literally 10 years total because it was 3 at the beginning and the other 7. And it was just
Oh my
for
God.
all of his selfish gratification
Hmm.
and just to try to be on this power trip. And it was disgusting. So the fact that the feds apprehended him and then they held him without bail because they said, he's a flight risk
Yeah.
and he's already a 3-time convicted felon. We're really concerned that he might do this to someone else.
Oh
And
my.
so all of the charges ended up being like about fraud, shocking,
So shocking.
conspiracy, yeah, all of those types of things. And just really like for me now, like I know that was a lot to unpack, but I have to explain like how dark it really was
Yeah.
because I don't think that people have any idea when they see me now, like the Victoria Ellen now,
Yeah.
um, how really truly horrible it was and how dark it really was and how you don't know where your next meal is coming from and how you know you literally you've been sentenced to jail and like who's going to take care of your kids if something
Yeah.
happens or you know what I mean. So it's just like it's such a dark place, and the depression and the anxiety of constantly living in danger zone. I mean, you're in the danger zone
Yeah.
and we never felt safe. We didn't know where he was coming from. I mean, he knew where we lived. He'd sent, different people to our home. Um, so it was a really scary time. And so I
Yeah.
have to unpack the darkness in order to see like the trickery to the triumph, right?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
why that's why it makes it worth, even reading and even telling anybody about your story.
Yeah. No,
Um,
absolutely.
so I guess I should just kind of jump into like current day maybe and just tell you where
Yeah.
we are now.
Yeah. Let's hear what God has done, how he's brought you through all of this and what your walk has really looked like with God. I mean, I'm blown away. And like just with my own story, that's why I never skip parts of my testimony and like the darkness that I lived because people see me now and I know they don't like they would never guess or think that that used to be my life or that's where I used to be, and it just gives God so much glory and so much praise for what he can do and that power that, he can really unfold and transform into our lives. It's beautiful. So I want to hear it.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, and you're exactly right. Like, I mean, I don't for a second think that I would be sitting here if it wasn't God. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, no
Amen.
doubt in my mind, a divine appointment for sure for my life and for my kids' lives.
Yes.
Um, I believe in miracles because I believe in God. And I mean, I'm a walking, talking miracle.
Yeah.
Like I always say, I don't look like what I've been through, Catherine. That's what I always tell people because I
Same.
really should look like 50 miles of bad back road. Like I'm not saying I'm any supermodel or anything, but I'm just telling you,
You
like,
are
I
beautiful.
really should be like wrapped in like some kind of a straight jacket in a padded cell. Like I'm not joking. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
the
No, I
fact
get it.
that like we're in this place is remarkable. So I'll just kind of give you some just quick like kind of flashback for a second. The work of the Lord has been.
Yes. Yes.
So my son actually had 6 sexual perpetrators by the time he was
Oh,
6 years old. And so he was on antipsychotics, lots of different medications because he had attempted suicide as a 5-year old. Just all of the trauma was just really getting the best of him. And the doctors at Children's Hospital were like, he will probably never be mainstreamed. So be prepared for that. He'll be on medications for, the rest of his life. don't know if he'll ever be able to graduate from high school. If he does, he's probably not going to be able to do much, whatever. So, you have to get these horrible reports. There's no miracle unless there's something that's just so horrible that there's no answer for it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so much darkness. And so it's amazing just to sit here on this podcast with you today and be like, oh, by the way, not only was my son mainstreamed, yeah, well, he had multiple track scholarship offers for collegiate track scholarships.
Let's go.
He ended up going to college on a track scholarship, and he graduated from college last year with his bachelor's
Oh my
degree.
gosh.
I
Go
mean,
God.
only God, like it's a
Only God.
complete miracle. I mean, the hand of the Lord on his life. And if you
Yeah.
were to meet him, you'd be like, oh my God, like he has such a sweet spirit. He really,
Mm.
really does. And I mean, he could have become like bitter and
Yeah.
hateful and hated the world and hated God and hated everybody, right? But he didn't. He chose like this compassion and empathy. And it's wild just to watch everything that he's doing now as a successful man. I mean, he really is. He's a successful man now.
Incredible.
Um, and then that little girl that I was pregnant with,
Yeah.
that is just such a miracle. I mean, it is truly a divine appointment for her to be here because of all the stress that I was under when I escaped that abusive marriage and
Mhm.
I ran down the street that day when
Wow.
I was 8 months pregnant with her. I mean, there is clearly a purpose and a plan for her life.
Absolutely.
She ended up earning an appointment to the United States Coast Guard Academy, one of
What?
our U.S. military service academies. It's the smallest of all
Oh
academies
my
and
gosh.
very, very difficult to get into. She is just one of, I think, over 130 or 140 women to
Wow.
earn this spot, and she'll be graduating in the class of 2026.
Oh my gosh. That's
And
amazing.
this past spring, she was able to share her story, her testimony at an event that they have at the Coast Guard Academy every year. It's called Eclipse. It's over a 50-year tradition. The entire Corps of Cadets is there, top brass. I
Wow.
mean, it is something to see.
Yeah.
And like I said, people, 1,400 people, and she shared her story back in April. Standing ovation. I don't think there was a
Wow.
dry eye in the house. She's now the vice president of CASA, Coalition Against Sexual Assault, at
Oh,
the United States Coast Guard Academy, and she hosts a myriad of other events there, and she holds different positions there. So just absolutely successful, spectacular, strong, God-fearing woman. Like I can't
amazing.
even begin. Like they're my heroes. They
Yeah.
really are my
That's
heroes.
incredible.
But I mean, we had to fight for them, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's why like I'm on this mission because I feel like as women we have got to remember our purpose
Yeah.
as mothers as well. So you've
Mhm.
been entrusted these children. It's your job to protect them. You can't sit there and allow someone to destroy their lives
Mhm.
and stand idly by and watch that happen. You've got to
Yeah.
fight.
You have to.
And my favorite scriptures, I actually quote this in my book. It's Isaiah 41:10.
Mhm.
And that says, do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. And I can't even tell you, like, I read that scripture so many times. I had scriptures literally plastered everywhere, in my car, on the mirror where I would put my makeup on every single day, in my journal, of course, just writing and writing and writing, and then God just watching his hand like through, and this is kind of strange for some people, so I just want to give a little disclaimer, but I have dreams, prophetic dreams.
I love that.
And
Awesome.
so I had this amazing dream that the entire case hinged on, and I did exactly what I felt like God was telling me to do from this dream.
Wow.
And that was the linchpin to the case.
Wow.
And that wasn't the only dream I had. I've had so many dreams just continuously throughout this entire case.
I love how
And
God
then
works.
just, yes, I mean, it's
He's still the same
amazing.
God who does all the stories we read about in the Bible, he's still the same God who, gives us those dreams and talks to us in that way. And so for you to be obedient to live that out and, make that happen is just a testament to your walk with him and just everything that he's done. I mean, it's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. I mean, you can really have restoration. And I
Oh,
think that's
absolutely.
really what this road is about,
Yeah.
having restoration and living in the freedom that we have through salvation
Yeah.
and just having, what was so evil be turned around and use it for our good. And I always
Yeah.
say, I don't want any of my pain to be wasted. I want
Yeah.
it to be used for my purpose, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of why I wrote the book. And I just want to inspire other women that, like, no matter what you're going through, you're going to be able to get through this.
Yes.
You can make it, you will make it, and you're going to go back in the fire and pull somebody else out so that they can
Yes.
live a victorious life as well.
Yes. Amen. I mean, oh my gosh, I'm just like so shook by all of this. It's so beautiful. It's so profound. Just to see you here smiling and like the life that you now get to live and your kids hearing the story of just how God has completely redeemed their lives too. My life started out as being sexually molested as a child and that happened for nearly a year by our next door neighbor and I didn't realize what had happened to me until, I was in middle school and I told my parents and they didn't do anything, and it was just like a brush it under the rug kind of deal. And to hear you, want to protect your children and you just praise and be so celebratory about what God has done in their lives. I mean, it's so beautiful. And that's, the kind of mom I really want to be for my son, protect him with everything that I have and
Yes.
I mean, it's beautiful. I want to be friends with your daughter. She sounds like
No,
an awesome person and like
she's
she
so
would be a
amazing.
great guest.
She would be. You should have her on the show 100%. Yeah, she's actually flying home as we're recording this. She's on a plane right now trying to come home for the
Wow.
holidays. So, yeah, she's spectacular. She actually speaks and she's been asked to do several other things too. She'd be a great guest for you. And just a young person. I mean, she's almost 22 now, but
Yeah.
just because she is so young and so successful, but she does have such a heart after God and she just wants to help people, which is actually why she went into the Coast Guard. She said, I don't
Yeah.
want to take lives, I want to save lives. It's
Beautiful.
just so spectacular. And
Yeah.
I'm just so proud of you and all that you've done too, because I mean, thank you for sharing, becoming vulnerable and sharing what happened to you as a young child. I mean, that is so, so traumatic. And then not to feel safe and not to feel like anyone is cares enough to do something about it is really a tough pill to swallow. And look what you're doing now. You're hosting your own podcast. You're helping to bridge that gap that
Yeah.
we need so desperately, and
Yeah.
just spreading truth and love. I mean, this is incredible.
Thank you. It's truly, I mean, it's all God. It really is all God. And like, I don't want anybody to ever feel alone, and that's how I felt. And I know that you felt alone too. And when you're in the middle of that desert, it's so easy to feel that way and just to feel like God has abandoned you and like that's literally like that was my life. I when you talk about your son not hating God, I hated God. I was so angry with him, I was so bitter. I was just like throwing my life away because I was just so consumed by the trauma that I had experienced and because it wasn't even just being abused as a child. I was then sexually abused again as a freshman in high school and I just turned to the world, I moved across country from North Carolina to California. I mean, I was all over the place, lived in Europe. I was 19 years old and met a French guy who's 26 years old, moved to Europe with him. I praise God every day that that did not turn into like a sex trafficking type of
Oh
situation
yeah,
or
for
something.
sure.
He was a
Yes.
narcissist. He was abusive. I mean, he manipulated
Mm.
me into marriage at 19 years old, 20 years old, and it was so bad. And yeah, God saved me from all of that. And I praise him for that. But then I was just like, I was so lost. I was so broken and just found myself in those toxic cycles over and over and over
Yes.
again. And it wasn't until, I found my husband who was able to just break those toxic cycles for me and love me as God has loved Israel, and has just looked at me and seen brokenness, but has loved me despite it all. And I love that, like, your husband was there to help you walk through all of your darkness too. I mean, it's so amazing to see how God can give us these people here on earth, to help
Yes.
encourage us to become who God has called us to be. He
Yes.
encouraged you to be your own lawyer. I mean, that
Failed.
was incredible.
I know. It's
Yeah.
crazy, but that's the greatest thing, right? That you do have people in your life that
Yeah.
believe in you when you don't believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Like I didn't think I could do that, right? And there
I
was
didn't think
probably
I
going to
could
be
be doing
huge.
this.
Yeah. See? So like that's awesome. We need those people to pull those gifts out of us, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, 100%. And like, I just love to see how God, has just shown himself in your life, and um how he has just been fighting for you this entire time, fighting for your children, and just looking back on your life. I think it's so important for us to just be real with people. If there's like red flags that you look back and you see that you could have potentially, missed, what were those in your abusive relationship that you think you could have been like, oh, this is one, like, especially with the narcissist, my ex, he he was like picture perfect. He was kind, he was just, I don't know, he was kind to everybody else, and then like behind closed doors, it
Yeah.
wasn't like that. And um he would like do certain things and he'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to do that or whatever, and I would excuse it. And then um we got engaged and it was just like a switch flipped, and I was like, no, I cannot absolutely not marry this man, and my husband helped me get out of that relationship safely. He was a really good friend at the time, but I really want to hear just some red flags that you think you might have missed that somebody walking through this situation could glean from,
For sure. So initially, you got to remember that your friends and your family, they love you.
Mm,
And if they're saying like something's off about this guy, like you gotta at least like stop and take inventory.
yeah.
And unfortunately, there were red flags, but I wasn't listening. And that was like early on before I was ever pregnant or anything. And it was just like something's off, something's not right. And I think just asking general questions, everything was a secret or
Mm,
I couldn't get a straight answer.
mm,
So that's a red flag. And like, it's not like we have to be some type of private investigator, but like basic information, if that's being withheld from you,
yeah.
like dates or like your birth date or, like where you lived before where you are now or something like if everything's just so vague, I mean that's a
Yeah.
huge red flag too. And just not being able to like if you talk to like their friend group and like see who they're around and like check their family and like all of those kinds of things that maybe we think like, oh yeah, they have a great family. Because to me, when I looked at his family, I was like, oh my gosh, these people are like perfect. They go to church like 5 days a week and like they're just amazing. And it's wild because now, if I even fast forward 25 years, out of those five children in that family, four of them are convicted felons. And for, yeah, drug trafficking and gross sexual imposition of a minor, rape, fraud, and all these people were in church. So I'm not here to like dog church, but I'm just telling you, like, some people are like, oh, well, I met him at church. And I'm like, oh my gosh, don't meet
Yeah.
him at church, please.
I've met plenty of guys at church who just want to get straight in my pants. So, like,
Exactly, right? Oh my gosh, exactly. So, there's a lot of red flags that those are at least a few of them, but that I would say be on the lookout for this.
yeah, those are really good. I know, like, for me too, personally, I ignored so many red flags, like my family, they would be real with me and be like, I
Yep.
don't like him or whatever. And, as an adult, you want to be like, oh, well, I know better than my family or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And you want to do things your own way. And I think like just the input that we are so quick to neglect or ignore is from our family. And, just like God, I think about my relationship with my son. I love him so deeply, and I would never want him to put himself in a like dangerous situation or anything like that. And so like when I try to protect him from something like food that's too hot or whatever, I'm not doing that to hurt him or, to keep something good from him. I'm trying to lead him in a way that's going to help him, And so like when I think about my parents and how they have tried to give their input in my life or my brothers, and I was just quick to dismiss what they said because I know better. I knew better, right? And we're like, well, I know him, right? Like I know this person and you don't know him. And but they do, like they see how you interact with this person and
Yes.
I just think like we don't need to be so quick to neglect what our family has said, right? Like I think that's such a
Right.
valuable input. Like the older I get, and even just becoming a mom, right? Like I would never want to keep something valuable from my son. And I look back on my past relationships, and if he like for my big red flag, my ex just like refused to be emotionally connected or like show any type of physical like PDA. And
Oh yeah.
like he wouldn't hold my hand. I'm not saying like, oh, he won't like make out with me in public or whatever. Like he wouldn't even
Right,
hold
right.
my hand, like if I
Right.
went
Like,
to
come on,
hold
man.
yeah, if I went to hold his
Yeah.
hand or something, he would rip it away from me, like, and he would just be like, well, that's not me. And it's just like I'd be like,
Okay.
okay, right? But no, like and it's just these signs that if somebody's not emotionally available for you and they continuously lie and you keep catching them on a lie, don't keep excusing the lie. Because that's what I do.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. That's a huge red flag. Like,
Yeah.
lie number one, like, why are we lying right now?
Yeah.
And people lie out of fear. There's something that they're
Hmm.
hiding, something they don't want you to know. So it's like, why are you lying? And there were
Yeah.
so many lies. And yeah, I agree. That's definitely another one. But don't dismiss your family or your friends who are going, this guy's not good for you or this gal's not good for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Because most of the time, they're right. Like, I think of my brother, he
Right.
dated me. I don't want to dog her. I hate gossip. They were not good together. And my whole family has told him he's finally, come to the realization. But it's just like, we're trying to love you, man,
Right. I just want the best for you. This is not the best for you.
Exactly. Exactly. But speaking of, where we are now and in your marriage, how have you been able to find healing and trust with your husband? And what has that looked like for y'all coming together as you've walked through all of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's wild to think about because I've now been remarried almost 12 years. In January it'll be 12 years.
Mm,
So it's crazy. Personally, just because of everything that I've been through, I think one of the things I really needed from someone was patience and
mm,
understanding. Um, and I just would really push the fact that you don't just want to be just to say like I have a husband, I have a
mm,
girlfriend, I have a boyfriend, like whatever it is, like no, like you need to find somebody that's a good match for you.
yes.
And my husband has so many like fruits of the spirit, like just patience and kindness and meekness and like long suffering. Oh my gosh, court for 7 years, like all
Yeah.
the things. Like he really just has all of those qualities. And so, for me, I needed somebody that I could trust. And so other people might be really defensive, like, why are you asking me where I'm going? Or why are you asking me where I am? I told you where I was going. It's like, well, probably because I was married to somebody who lied about everything.
Yeah.
So, just like I need that reassurance. And sometimes I just need a little extra compassion or understanding or a little patience. So, that's huge. But I can just say, like, we have a really strong faith. Both of us do.
Mhm.
And so we pray together. We do our devotion together every morning before work. Um, and really, like, I feel like a lot of the strength that we have comes from a relationship with God, and
Amen.
just that, like, I don't have all of the answers. I just
Yeah.
don't. And I don't think anybody does. But knowing that there is a rock that's higher than I, like, I can go to him and he has the answers, and that he will guide me and lead me and direct me. I mean, that's been huge. And just being able to allow him to do a work in my heart,
Mm,
because I was so untrusting. I did
yeah.
not trust anyone,
Yeah.
just because of all of the lies, the abuse, the deception, just everything. And allowing, just to him to create in me a clean heart and
Mm,
to renew a right spirit within me, because I was so broken.
yeah.
I was such a mess. And just being able to, lay everything out and be like, I'm a mess and I need you to take it, because I'm not worthy. I felt so unworthy. I didn't even want to be with my husband because he was so perfect, and I tried to break up with him because I'm like, I don't deserve somebody as good as you and your kids.
You're
Like, I
speaking my life. Like that
yeah.
was me
I'm
too.
like, I don't deserve any of this goodness. Like, and there's a dream about that in my book too, but it just really is something that you have to be intentional about, I think.
Yeah.
And the therapy that I've gone through that's helped me, and I mean, I have graduated from so many therapists, God love them. It's like you get to a certain point though, and you think, okay, now we've got to work on grief. Now
Mm,
we need to work on trauma. Now we need to work on trust or whatever, you know what I mean?
yeah.
So you have all of these chapters in your life just like you do in a book. So,
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. And like I think that's such a valuable lesson and like thing to grasp, is like our healing journey. So many people think that it should just happen immediately or happen within a year or a couple months or whatever, but you have to literally retrain your brain, your heart, like your responses, everything over and over and over again. And like reteach yourself how to live and how to be in the moment and how to listen and how to respond. It's like all these things that go into healing from trauma and healing from abuse and learning to trust somebody after you have experienced nothing but, that pain and that trauma is something that is
yes.
so incredibly difficult to do. And especially when you still feel that shame and that weight of the things that you've been through, and you feel dirty, you feel too unlovable. And that was me. And I was so afraid to lose my husband. And not because of him, or anything that he was doing or anything he would say to me. It was just my own insecurity that he's gonna realize that I'm not some like beautiful, perfect, like little angel, right? Like I have so much baggage and it's going to take a long time to unpack. And
Oh my
just,
gosh. Yeah, we all
yeah,
do.
yeah. And just like finding somebody who loves you through all of that is such a beautiful
Yes.
testament of just God's grace and his goodness. And
Yes.
um I'm just so thankful that you have that safe space, with him. And um I just love watching and seeing how God has just like completely restored and redeemed everything, and I think it's just like, I don't know, so many people just think healing, oh yay, right, right, or like, yeah, I found God, yay, but like it's literally a daily choice. And even not like every second it's a choice in the day, to heal and to make a better choice or to retrain yourself emotionally or whatever it is. And man, it's a wild ride. And I just want people to grasp that, that truth that it's
Yep.
okay if you are still like tripping up over the same patterns or the same responses to something or the same trigger, because it takes time to heal and to get over
So
those
much.
things. Um,
Yes.
and just going off of that, I love leaving our listeners with those real life practical steps for healing. And so going off of just knowing that healing takes time, what are other practical steps that have helped you heal that someone can start doing for themselves to find that healing in their own life if they're a survivor of abuse or all the things that you've been through?
Gosh, I mean, there are probably a few things that I would throw out there. There are a ton of modalities that people can use, for healing. But I think first and foremost, we just need to give ourselves some grace.
Yes.
Um,
And
I mean, I named my daughter, her middle name is Grace. It's actually Mercedes Grace, and Mercedes means mercy, and her middle name's Grace. So Grace and Mercy is like following her all the days of her life. It's her namesake, right? And
it's
so for me, it was
sorry, it's so funny. My parents were gonna call me Mercedes, but my dad was like, she's gonna want a Mercedes. I just had to give that little snippet. That's funny.
That's so funny. I love it. Well, so does Mercedes. So, it is what it
Does
is.
it?
Um, but giving yourself that grace because as survivors, we have to acknowledge like it's been a lot.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter who on this planet would have gone through this. It's a lot for any human being
Yeah.
to bear the weight of this. And
Yeah.
so just give yourself some grace first and foremost.
Yeah.
And then really start being intentional because like I was in an abusive marriage for 3 years, but I've been in therapy now for I think we're running on 16 years now. So a lot longer than the initial abuse, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But to your point, it's that reprogramming. And
Mhm.
thank God that He designed our brains with neuroplasticity so they can be
Yes.
reprogrammed and
Yes.
so that we can overcome, everything that we've been through.
Yeah.
But really, just finding a good support system, I think, is huge. And there are so many different places that you can go for support in communities. Just going on like your local county's website and looking for like counseling and going to like some of the places actually where I live in Ohio. They have free counseling services. They have
Okay.
support groups for every different kind of thing, like for abuse or for domestic violence, sexual abuse, or even addictions. And there are all of these different places that are ready, willing, and able to help people. It's just that you have to reach. And I
Yeah.
always tell people that, like, you've got to reach, you've got to do some of this work.
Mhm.
Like, you're in this
Yeah.
position. So give yourself the grace, take a moment, like, oh my gosh, I've been through a lot. What am I going to do to get better? And even
Yes.
if you're drowning in the middle of the ocean, if they throw you a life,
You got to grab it.
yeah, you've got to grab a hold of it. Like you
Yeah.
have to grab a hold of that life-saving opportunity
That's
and you've got to
good.
do the work, like hold onto that and pull
Yes.
yourself up on it and let them pull you in. Like it's just not going to magically like be better now.
Yeah.
And
That's good.
so finding those different healing places, I think, would be beneficial.
I love that. I love just the imagery of that, and because we do have to work. God wants to heal us and he wants to meet us where we are, but we have to be willing to meet with him too, and we have to be willing and ready to lay it all down and be done trying to fix it all on our own because we can't, like we
Yeah,
can't find healing in the world. The Bible tells us we can gain everything by going to the world, but we're going to lose our soul, right? Like we can't gain
absolutely.
anything from turning away from God and turning to the world for those things. And God is that lifeboat. He is that floating device that can be thrown to us, and so is therapy, and so is that daily choice. And we have to hold on and keep going until we're fully safe on the boat. And even then we're gonna hit waves, right? Like we're still gonna have to make it to shore, and then we make it to shore, and then we're gonna have sea legs, right? So it's like just this constant going of, okay, I got to this part, but now I have to face something else. And that grace is such a fundamental thing of healing, because we have to have grace. And I don't think it's any, shortcoming of God and the story of Jesus where, Jesus died so we would have that grace and to show us that everything has been taken away from us. And if it's been taken away from us, we can offer ourselves that grace. Um,
Yes.
man, it's just so beautiful. Everything is just so beautiful. And I I just my heart goes out for people, for women who are in, abusive relationships. And I was lucky enough to have my blinders taken off, by God, and how he used my husband to show me the type of man that is a true Christian, or, you know, truly filled with the fruits of the spirits. And it allowed me to see how I deserve to be treated. And if you don't have that, if girls don't have that, or women, or, what are some resources or practical steps of getting out safely?
So again, like I would highly recommend utilizing like your local county
Yeah.
to go on like your county website and check because like I just did a special fundraiser last month in October for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I partnered with two different organizations that literally can help with resources. So
Love that.
legal
Yeah.
aid, counseling, shelter, food. I mean, literally everything that you can think of, a hotel for a place to stay, in an interim. So every single city and county is different, but that is, what I would recommend. And if you're in a situation that is like life threatening, I mean, this is nothing to play around with.
Yeah.
This is your life. We have one life to live. We have got to get out for our children, and I know it's scary. I've been there. But making that phone call to the police for me was like, if I am calling the police, I am not going back. I should not be
Yeah.
living in such an unsafe environment where I have to call the police.
Yeah.
And so the police did come. Um, Not ideal situation, but hopefully if you have to call the police, that will kind of be that springboard for you, and they also have resources. If you don't know where to go in your county, you can call the police department on a non-emergency line and they will actually point you in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that's a really good, helpful like tip right there, because, when I think about your story and how your ex-husband was so controlling, even with like if they have access to the internet or something like that,
Oh yeah.
they could grab a phone and call 911 or something, There's even a text line, I think, now for 911. So if you
Yes.
have like that kind of access, just periodically or something, you could do that. Um, so yeah, that's a good little nugget right there. But thank you. Like, all of this has just been absolutely incredible. I mean, I just praise God today, truly. And I just thank you so much for giving away some of your time to chat with us, and for opening up your
Absolutely.
heart and being so vulnerable by sharing your testimony and your beautiful, beautiful healing journey, all with the desire to help others walk through their desert and extinguish that darkness that we've talked about. It really has just been an absolute honor to meet with you at the well and talk about how a life with Jesus can literally break every chain. I mean, I just like, yes, God, like, right? Like,
Exactly.
he,
Absolutely.
yeah, he's redeemed every part of your story. He's redeemed every part of my story. And it's just a testament to what he can do. And I pray for those who are listening that you're filled with hope and encouragement and comfort as you continue to meet Jesus at the well. And if you want to find Victoria on Instagram, you can find her at Victoria Ellen.co. And you can actually find her book on her website and on Amazon, or her. I'm gonna let you do your website. What is your
Yeah,
URL?
it's the same, victoriaellen.co, and there's a link there. You can also find it on Amazon. You're exactly right, Catherine.
Perfect.
And all social media platforms, victoriaellen.co. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and LinkedIn. So I'd love to meet up with you there.
I love that. We love you, friend, and we're here cheering you on.